I guess let's just start with the first one. I wanted to ask you first. You're making your video on Doggerland, like the entire like plain, right?
Yeah, so I decided to just do Doggerland at its like max extent, and that seemed kind of the wackiest because one, the British Isles are no longer isles, and it kind of connects what we would think of as Britain, France, Germany, and Scandinavia just kind of all together. So Doggerland would essentially be like a weird melting pot for a bunch of cultures that really would not interact that close by. So yeah, that's why I chose Doggerland. It's like most max extent. I forgot what that would date it to.
I think
But
it's like, 8,000, 9,000 years ago. It's tough because
yeah,
Doggerland was mostly covered by glaciers. So like
yeah,
you have to hit that time where the glaciers had receded enough for it to actually be exposed and also for it to still be around, you know?
yeah. This is one of the things that always happens with sort of an alternate geography type scenario is like how much is changed and how much do you keep. And especially it's like in a scenario where Doggerland remains, it only exists because the sea levels are low because of the ice age. But if the ice age remains, you're not going to have any recognizable countries that we would think of. It essentially
Yeah.
be like Europe's just tribe people, and that's not very fascinating for a scenario. So it's a middle ground, and I kind of had that with my Antarctica. I had a video about if Antarctica was green, and it kind of fundamentally changes so much that you almost have to kind of not think about it, but also it's an interesting way of thinking about how people and cultures interact, less so of how Doggerland exists.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's the point of this whole video that I'm making is that like I think it's like the second line where I say like the earth is constantly changing. Like there is no one thing that has existed for the entirety, like
Hmm.
there's always change happening. And so, whatever time period you pick, there's always going to be, doubt and variation within all of it.
Yeah,
But
there's some variation. I mean, I'm mostly choosing to not include the glaciers because
yeah, I mean, make
I
it easy for yourself.
yeah, and also I want Sweden to exist and Scandinavia. So I mean that'd be funny though, just to be like, yeah, Doggerland exists. No one else does though. This but yeah, I think one this is gonna sound weird, but one fascinating thing I have about Doggerland is the rivers.
Oh
And
yeah.
if it continued to exist, I mean, this is an extension of Europe essentially. And so Doggerland would not just simply be, a bigger Denmark or a bigger UK or whatever. It would have whole alternate cultures that would mix and match along these uh, you know, river valleys that have essentially just, not existed. And so that's something that I had to kind of think about, especially as, the United Kingdom and Ireland and Denmark would essentially be like the higher ridges of this landmass.
Yeah,
So
that'd be
it's
the
like,
mountain folk.
yeah, they'd be like the mountain folk, and then you'd have kind of the civilizations in the north would be.
Well, I
it's
remember I
it's
remember
it's
seeing
weird.
a
Yeah.
map and like the Thames and the Rhine connected at a certain point and then flowed together. And it's that's something that's so crazy to think about now because they're in completely different land masses, like you don't think that like these two
Hmm.
rivers would actually combine and then become one.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the whole aspect of the UK's identity is that it's an island, and it's like once you remove that, and it's just kind of another part of I kind of lean into that like joke in the video of like the UK wants to be as far from Europe as possible, and then in this thing it's like nope, the continent just comes to them.
Yeah.
uh and yeah, that's kind of the Thames and the Rhine and stuff, just one single river, and how does that affect trade and civilization and the spread of people themselves, especially the Germanic people. I think, I mean,
Yeah,
my
those poor Celts, man. They really
yeah,
would not have had a chance.
well, it'd be, I mean, it'd be weird in terms of Roman history and stuff like
Oh,
that.
that's true
How would
too.
Roman, if, anticipating that Doggerland existing, you kind of have to brush aside how that would affect climate and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we would still anticipate, perhaps, say the Romans did happen to exist, how would what would happen if they even went further north and interacted with these people? What would happen there?
Yeah, that's crazy because they only collapsed really because they ran out of people to like, steal from,
Yeah.
in basic history standards anyway. And like they would have had, maybe it would have been a whole other contender itself, or maybe they would have just had like another 100 or 200 years of plundering and conquering before.
You're kind of having an extended, because Germanic people came from Scandinavia, and so the idea would be basically you're kind of extending Germany in some ways, and you're kind of extending the Celts in another, because the Celts came from the Alps. So it would be like, with the German, you kind of have this bigger clash between Celts and Germans in Doggerland itself that would already have been going on, and then the Romans would essentially show up, and it'd be kind of two of their worst enemies in one region almost the size of Germany and France combined. And so
Yeah.
I think one interesting thing is essentially removing the North Sea kind of takes away the raiding nature of the Vikings. Like the Vikings were entirely defined by sea travel, and if you just turn their sea into a landmass, what does that make them? Does that just mean that the Vikings would be kind of more continental, traditional like warriors, like the Gauls and stuff like that?
Yeah, I
That's
guess it
something
basically takes their strong point away. And I almost started to think that they might have been like the Mongols, but then it's like, well, they didn't really have horses either. So like, or they weren't like master horsemen by any means.
Yeah, the one thing that changes this is what type of environment is in Doggerland. I know that you're going to talk about that in your video.
Yeah.
Of that's where climate and talking about the stuff sort of affects, because even northern Scotland isn't really that forested. It's still a lot of it's you're really reaching the levels of where trees and stuff can kind of grow. But enough about my thing right now. I wanted to kind of curious on how Doggerland actually would like look. What would this kind of place look like? Would it be like flatlands? Would it be hill like
Well, yeah,
lands?
if we take like the standard topography that it already has and just assume it's either all a little higher or the sea level's just a little lower, then it's going to be very flat. It's just going to be like rolling hills. It's going to be mainly, the only mountains, like you said, are Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, and this little Dogger Island or this Dogger Bank. And I think that would have just resulted in a grassland savanna type ecosystem, and one very similar to like that of Africa. Like when it was around, there were mammoths here, there were rhinoceros here, woolly rhinoceros, and there were like lions, European lions, and it really would have resembled almost exactly, just a cold version of the African savanna. So it would have been a very interesting place in that regard too, because you would have had this whole other ecosystem that I don't even think really exists anywhere else in Europe. There's no like wide open plains unless you want to go all the way to Russia. But like in this area, there's nothing really like that anymore. At least
this would kind of be like the sort of the Ukraine in a way, kind of the West of, I mean, that would be, I mean, in that sense, if it was a plain, I could easily see sort of like a horse culture. I mean, even though
or
this
even
isn't
like a
as
mammoth
big,
culture,
or
like
even, or
that's
if are we going that far?
crossed.
Yeah, are we going that far? Mammoths still exist. I'll do that in my video. Mammoths still exist in Doggerland. That's the
Well, maybe not mammoths because they went extinct
Yeah.
anyway, but like woolly rhinoceros, even, like if you got those, then you're set too. Like that's you can conquer the Mongols with woolly rhinoceros,
Woolly rhinos bringing in some Irish elk.
Yeah.
That would be great. Yeah, I think man, that'd be such a weird thing, because that's something Western Europe really has never interacted with, is just endless plains. It's always dark force. And I think historically, yeah, that's definitely going to lead to a different cultural divides, especially I think the UK, if anything, I can imagine it being like a almost a mountain barrier between two groups of, you know, kind of grassland folk, if you think about it. Like and like on the west, I could imagine that especially this area is going to be warmer because it's, you know, you have more of that current going through. They would be more of more of like, I don't know how you would explain it because it's,
I mean, you know, I feel like it would just be like what Western Europe is to Eastern Europe. You know, it would be like Western plain lands to Eastern plain lands. And like,
yeah, it'd be
the UK,
it'd be a very stark divide, honestly, from, you know, one side of the UK to the other. Actually, that'd be very interesting in terms of how climate would work, because you would have the West be relatively warm, but then would the East, without access to kind of to that current, would Denmark and more of the inland area without the North Sea, would that be colder than in our timeline?
I bet it would. I bet it would just block out any, you know, moderating effects of an ocean. It would just, you know, because that latitude, you know, on North America is like, you know, northern Quebec and like, you know, just tundra almost, you know, and it's only because they have this water here in the first place that it's not. So I can imagine it would be like much drier and without the temperature moderation of the ocean, probably a lot colder.
So that would actually completely transform. I mean, that's the great thing about imagining alternate landmasses like this, is it kind of has its ripple effects. Especially what we think of as Central Europe. I mean, this would pretty much transform Germany and Poland in areas that are, like you said, higher latitudes, but you know, they have a more moderate climate thanks to stuff like the North Sea and the current. You're kind of extending the cold temperature of Russia, and that's, you know, since that's so far from the sea.
Like it's like the inland comes further in, or the moves further west.
Oh man.
And like like something we're not even really thinking about is that like Doggerland also means there's no Baltic Sea, you know. So that would even be like, that's even more like, I don't even know if if we have time for that.
you know what, we can, yeah, let's oh man, this is gonna be fast. This is gonna be, because you're okay. So without the Baltic Sea, I mean, you pretty much there's kind of a divide between, you know, the Scandinavian world and the Slavic world. It's a very easy divide. Baltic Sea completely is almost like a natural wall in that way. You know, except for Finland. But even though it's kind of iffy. But I mean, you remove the Baltic Sea and you kind of have something. What would it be? A Baltic plain?
It would pretty much be the same as Doggerland, where it's just like this low grassy area, probably, you know, no mountains or anything.
I mean, that would kind of just extend the Slavic lands, certainly west. I mean, this is a very good scenario for the Slavs. I'm just gonna say that this is kind of, you know, this is their German's worst situation. Yeah, this is a German's worst nightmare. Not only is the UK extended, you know, kind of connected now to the mainland, but Germany's probably a lot colder. Denmark really doesn't exist. The Vikings essentially don't exist as we kind of anticipate them to. And the Slavs kind of would just move further west too. Oh man, I mean, that transforms how the Mongol invasions would work. I mean, if they're, you know, assuming there are Mongol invasions or even nomadic, you know, steppe warriors coming in from the east anyway, I mean, you could kind of transform anything east of Germany into the new steppe warriors, because you're kind of creating that culture in the first place. The Baltic Sea, if anything, would transform from a barrier to just a passageway. Really.
It'd be like Poland, pretty much. You'd be able to march right across it.
Oh yeah, you would. And it'd be even worse because it's lower in elevation. It's essentially surrounded by what would be kind of a mountainous region, which would just be the Scandinavian peninsula and mainland Europe. And you just kind of have this basin of, I mean, it'd be colder too. It'd be far colder. So it'd be almost tundra conditions if you think about it.
Yeah. And what's something that I just thought of too is like, because it's still like if we're working with the same topography, there'd
Yeah.
probably be a river running straight through it along what used to be the Baltic. There'd probably be a Baltic River or something
Yeah,
that would
and
just
that would
like tantalize everyone.
I mean, if that would be the closest to if you would have a civilization or people in this region, I mean, that it would be along that river valley.
Yeah.
I mean, you could kind of, if we're going by base, actually, I'm gonna go see elevation. I want to see elevation of Baltic Sea. This is what I'm doing now. I'm Googling this to kind of look at it. Yeah, so the deepest portions, I mean, it could either be a lake or a river system, and it would kind of just be this. Yeah, it would be
Well,
like a
maybe that's
series
even
of.
more interesting, right? Like Europe doesn't even have many lakes to it, like there are some in Finland, but like maybe it could be a Great Lakes of Europe instead.
It really depends on how much how far Doggerland goes, how much this is affected. I mean, what if rivers would feed into this? Say Denmark is completely separated, from the rest of, or not Denmark. Say the Baltic Sea is completely separated from any other sea. You take Denmark, you just make it a land wall essentially.
Yeah.
And how would that drain out? I mean, I could imagine freshwater rivers would still feed into the basin, so it's not like it would be completely dry. But I mean, this would be something that I would actually have to do more research. Damn you, you just extended this so much because I'm like, oh man, now Scandinavia isn't even a peninsula. This is the fascinating thing, is this fundamentally alters what we even think of as our European cultures. This would change how the original Germanic people would even disperse before the Romans got there. And it certainly changed how Slavs would disperse as well. So kind of our idea of what even is a Europe, I think, might change, because it's no longer like Europe's peninsula of peninsulas. It's kind of just one fatter extension of Asia.
Yeah, I mean,
So
maybe
like,
it wouldn't even be considered its own thing at that point. Maybe
yeah,
the flatness just lets, Mongol hordes into the point where it's even more homogenous
well,
with the
even
rest of
from
Asia.
yeah, even from the idea of how, people view themselves. Europe began viewing itself really as a peninsula with the spread of Christendom and stuff like that. And it was a lot easier for Europe to view itself as something separate from Asia because of, its natural geography, because it had
Yeah.
so much, water and difference. And it kind of was like each area of Europe was almost its own continent, kind of split from everyone else. But yeah, if it's just one extended landmass and it's already that that Russian Eastern Europe sort of culture and geography kind of just extends in, maybe not geography, climate. The climate kind of, I mean, yeah, that kind of removes the idea of what Europe is, at least from the Western perspective. I could imagine if there is this idea of a Western civilization, it would really still be, wrapped around the Mediterranean world. I think my cat's playing with something.
I took my cat's collars off so that you wouldn't hear him.
Oh, I should have done that. Hey, Luna. Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. Okay. But yeah, so yeah, it kind of, I mean, you'd have the Western civilization would essentially just be the Mediterranean as it originally was. And then anything north and anything east would just be kind of the other that it historically was in ancient times.
Yeah.
I mean, God, man, now you got me looking at Baltic Sea, and this is what happens. This is what I had this happen with the Arctic a few weeks ago, is I just started looking at the Arctic and it just looked weirder for me in terms of how, like, how does this work? What is this? And then I started obsessing over it. So now I'm going to obsess over this. But yeah, in terms of Doggerland, I think that in broad senses, that's what I could imagine would happen. In terms of whenever you change anything from history, in terms of movements of people, and especially wide stuff like climates in itself, you're going to have fundamentally different events that we can't even predict.
Yeah.
But in terms of just what we know of how cultures move and how groups interact, this would probably be like my best
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
All right. So let's change now to just the Dogger Island.
Dogger Island. So
I
that's
feel like that makes it simpler, right?
That does, and it can change a lot less. So I think that's something that actually let me go to, because I'm clicking through other stuff. Yeah, if your audience doesn't know, he sent me a bunch of images and said, look at this. So Dogger Island, I think, is actually kind of funny and cute. I could imagine this easily being a region just, kind of not devastated. It'd be transformed by the Vikings in the medieval age. This would be certainly very Scandinavianized, much in the way that Iceland and other regions settled by Norse people would be. I can't imagine this would have any previous settlers before the Norsemen, mostly because.
Well, what's interesting is because it was connected to the rest of Doggerland before, in the prehistory, there were actually people who lived here, when it was a real island. There were actual people there. So I think there might have been. Yeah, I think there might have been like a whole other,
culture,
unique culture. Yeah, Indo-Europeans only, came in and changed, the language structure and everything of Europe, but they might not have made it to this little island. It is so isolated. At least in regards to Britain, which is right next to France. It's like this might have had its own unique thing going on by the time the Vikings got around.
Yeah, you're completely right. That's the strangest thing about the Ice Age for me, is that you don't really think about this in terms of people living there and land masses just completely disappearing as anatomically modern humans existed.
Yeah, so that's what this whole video
yeah, in my mind I didn't even think about that. This would be kind of the largest example of what happened with the Bretons or the Welsh or any pre-Indo-European group, like you said, but it'd be even, to a greater extent, because this is a region this is a relatively large island too, that would have no interaction with the Indo-European groups. It'd just be kind of a time capsule in a way of
until
the Viking. That would be kind of the. That's the biggest tragedy. This would be something, if this did exist, we would if we would be having a conversation like this in the modern day, we would just be talking about how the Vikings kind of replaced these people, or at least intermingled and
overtook them for sure.
But if they were completely isolated and there was no there's no boats or anything like that. No, how that could actually affect them in terms of diseases and stuff too.
That's true.
So you'd have, that's the thing. It really depends on how much communication there would be with the outside. Would there be even boats that would come and interact with them? I think there would be. So I don't think we would see a Native American type situation, but we would certainly see a cultural shift as the Vikings come, and it at least be a intermingling. So it wouldn't probably be a pure Viking takeover and like a cultural change, but it might be a smaller version of what we saw happen in England, how you had a pre-Germanic people get taken over by the Vikings, and then they got taken over by the Anglos, and they got taken over by the Normans. And so you could see this sort of similar situation that happened in Britain happen on Dogger country, or whatever the people would call it. Actually, that'd be fascinating of what would people call this island. And
I think that's just impossible.
Oh yeah, that's impossible that would be entirely,
it would be something derived from like either like the Greeks name for it, like Hyperborea or something. It'd have something like that. Or something, from their own weird language that, they only they had.
I could imagine it would be like maybe whatever the original people's name for the land was, kind of poorly translated into Norse. And then that would be the name for themselves. But I could imagine this being kind of just a Indo-European people that's sort of slowly taken over, and then it kind of becomes Norse and Viking in our own age. And then by the Middle Ages and stuff like that, it would be very absorbed into the Scandinavian world. The most interesting thing is I could imagine its neighbors would just constantly, Britain would just constantly
that was going to be my next question. Would it be an independent country, you think, today? Or do you think it would just be like an English vassal, or like New Netherlands or something?
I think I think this would be something that would actually be, it's so perfectly placed.
Right? That's what
I think it would
that's
be,
what makes it so interesting.
I think it would lead to a different relationship between Britain and Denmark, because
Oh, that's
this
for
would be
sure.
a people that are, tied to the Scandinavian world, but they're so close to Britain. And Britain, I think, would very much, because it's not that much farther than Ireland. And so, say Britain, by the Middle Ages and stuff like that, I could easily imagine a few medieval style kind of land invasions, or nobles trying to claim rightful ownership of, Dogger Island. And then the Danish would also try to have claims over Dogger Island. And it would kind of be the sore spot, I could imagine, between the English and something that, really has never, we don't really imagine existing. But, you place one landmass between two people and you say go, and it's gonna make even the most friendly people rivals. I could imagine this would be very much a sore spot between the two. And I mean, England, say England still becomes the power that it was in our timeline, and it just takes it over. Would we, and these people are, say not converted, or changed, I can't imagine they would be, entirely anglicized. They would still be relatively, Nordic. This could be an Ireland situation, oddly enough. I mean, it wouldn't be tied along religious lines, because say the Reformation still happens, this would be probably a Protestant, nation still. But yeah, it'd be interesting to imagine Nordic people being almost a lower, like they'd have to field loyalty to the British, to the Anglos, which is a very interesting thing to imagine. So yeah, you could have almost a United Kingdom that, just for the fun of it, let's say by the 19th century, you have, the realms of England, Scotland, Ireland, and then whatever Doggerland would be called, and you'd have this even weirder map. And you know what? We'll put that in the video of just a UK map with a different cross on it. Maybe it just
Oh my
starts.
God, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be weirder. I mean, you could even, yeah. I mean, that's the fascinating thing too, is Scandinavia has, they're very, very simplistic with their flags, and a lot of Northern Europe just uses the same cross type of, the cross of St. Andrew, cross of St. George, the Denmark cross, I forgot what that was called. And yeah, Doggerland would probably follow the similar pattern. It'd just be a different cross with a different color that would be included into the United Kingdom.
All right, now I'm thinking just like the standard Union Jack, but instead of being like a middle cross, it's just like to the side, like a a Scandinavian cross.
Well, I think you could. I don't know if it'd be to the side, because you got to think the Union of the UK was England first, so you always are going to have the cross of St. George front and center. But I could imagine they would implement the color scheme of Doggerland in some way, and that entirely depends on what the color scheme of Doggerland even would be. I mean, we could honestly, just for the fun of it, you could go through a bunch of different cross designs, like black and yellow and whatever, and be like, this would be the alternate design. But yeah,
because you said black and yellow, that's what it's going to be in the video.
It's gonna be black and yellow. That'd be cool.
I'm thinking about it right now, and I'm like, damn, that looks cool already.
The British, the alternate UK of 4 different isles. I mean, we're almost having a kind of Argentina Britain style situation of the United Kingdom would call this, they'd call it Doggerland, while the Scandinavians would call it something completely else.
Yeah, there'd definitely be like a little like disputed parentheses on every map over Doggerland.
Oh,
like some dashed line over some territory. Somebody claims this, nobody claims that.
Oh my God, you could even have a situation where the westernmost portion of the island would be much more Anglican, because that'd be the closest to Britain, and then the farther eastern regions would be much more Scandinavian. You could have a Crete type situation, so that it could be many situations that would just completely ruin relationships between the UK and Denmark. We'll just throw a torch right into that whole friendship. Yeah. So I guess we can move on. I think that's
yeah. All right. So let's look at these four off the east coast of the US now.
okay.
These are pretty interesting too, I think. You know, each
Mhm.
one, it kind of has a different story, I feel, to it. But I think there are two in particular that I think have a bit more interesting stories to tell.
Yeah, I think there's one that I see right off of Nova Scotia that I can't imagine it would change too much. It would just be
Yeah.
one more interesting aspect. Yeah, I think the two that you're talking about are definitely the ones that are right out by the ocean somehow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So what's the story with these two ranges?
All right, so let me tell you like what I've been thinking of.
Mhm.
Like a few years ago, I did a video on who discovered America first or whatever. And one story that I didn't get to include was the theory that there were Basque fishermen who would travel to where this island is, or where the one on the all the way in the ocean used to be, and they'd
Yeah.
fish those grounds because these are some of the richest fishing grounds in like the whole world, pretty much.
Oh wow.
And and people just, you know, it's theorized, people don't have proof or anything, but it's thought that there were Europeans fishing there before, you know, before anyone ever knew that America was there. There's actually a funny story, I forgot who it is now, but some European explorer went over here to, you know, go exploring, I guess, and he found a fleet of Basque fishing ships there already. He was like, well, you know, what the hell, like, you guys already know about this area? Like, I thought I was discovering it. And they're just like, no, like, there's tons of cod here, man. Like, that's how we sell it to you guys.
It's like who cares about, you know, finding a new world and anything like that? We just want fish. That's
Yeah,
all.
there's so many fish here, man.
Oh man,
So,
well
you know, that's my theory on this, you know, this Grand Bank. It's called the Grand Banks, this Grand Bank Island, where if there was an island there and, you know, there were Basque fishermen, you know, they probably would have set up shop. They probably would have. And this is like, it's thought of that they were doing it or fishing here around 500 years before Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
So like during the mid ages, you know, which is just crazy to think about.
I actually, God, that's fascinating. So that could easily very much be. I don't know if this would, because the Basque is a very low population. I can't imagine the Basque would colonize this entire region, but I could see, you know, you would have some Basque villages and stuff that would like be set up. They wouldn't even know that it's, you know, that far away or that close to a continent. I mean, really, it's kind of about how much people would pay attention to this region. You know, the Vikings came over to North America and stuff like that. If this island still existed, would you know, even Eric the Red or any Vikings like that have accidentally came across it? And since it's a lot, you know, lower in latitude than the areas they did discover, would they think, oh, this is actually an interesting region to colonize? You know, because like,
well, actually,
Greenland,
you know, it sits, because it's so much further out to sea. It also sits much closer to the Gulf Stream, which would have made it also like a more warm or a warmer place. So like if you look at the latitude, like the rest of this area is like pretty darn cold, but you know, because it's in the middle of the ocean, if Vikings found it, they probably would have, you know, loved it, and so would have anyone. But
and they would have I mean, I could imagine medieval people in some way, most likely Vikings, or say Basque or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you could easily colonize this area, and it would probably be very, I mean, the type of fauna and stuff that would even live on this region would just be fast. I mean, because, you know, it's too far away from North America to really, I would imagine, have mammals, but there could be so many weird alternate bird species on this island. Yeah,
well, I said in my video, I say that I don't think that any Native Americans ever would have reached it. You know, it was only around for like 1,000 years or so, and that was, you know, right when the glaciers were retreating, because it is so low. So I think it would have been like untouched, not even compared to the American coast, but it would just be a pristine land when people found it.
I mean, would treat, because especially if it just just came up, say even after a few thousand years, would
Yeah.
trees even be on this island?
I'd have to imagine there would be, but like it would, it wouldn't perfectly reflect the mainland at all.
Yeah, it would be this it'd just be a very unique ecosystem. It'd be even more unique than, Tasmania compared to Australia or this is
you know what I just thought of? Even. Wow, because you said birds. I made a video about the great auk.
Great auk, yeah.
Yeah, and there would have been no predators. This could have been like their perfect like homeland,
Oh God, now I'm just okay. You have to include this in the video, or I'll include this or something. I don't know. I know we're not even. This isn't even part of my video, but the national bird just have to be the great auk.
That would be on the coat of arms.
Coat of arms. They survive just as much as the kiwi is the New Zealand and whatever. Yeah, this is the new penguin. They flourish.
Yeah,
we'll call it Auckland.
That's what's that's perfect.
Yeah, it's called Auckland.
Well, it's funny because I was gonna say that because those other islands right off Nova Scotia are right off Nova Scotia, I would call them like New Faroe because of the Faroe Islands.
And then that's great.
Auckland. That's perfect. Like
Auckland.
It's all coming together now.
They sound like they would fit right into Canada too. Yeah, honestly, you could just show this map to somebody in the present day and just be like, "Oh, you've never been to Auckland? Have you ever been to the New Faroe Islands?" And they'll just be so confused. Yeah. And because most people probably aren't spending their time looking at Canada and the map like we are. But so moving away from Auckland, that's okay, cool name, Auckland, going to the New Faroe Islands, that's closer to the coast. That would probably just be an extension of kind of that Scottish colonization, like you were saying, right?
Yeah, I don't think these would be too different. They would definitely belong to Canada now. It might have had a few tribes on them when people arrived, but again, like I don't know, I don't see them affecting too much.
Yeah, no, they'd be kind of like Prince Edward Island and sort of that sort of thing.
But all right, here the one that's all the way in the corner, you see it, the lower left hand corner.
Yeah, that's by Massachusetts?
Yes, that's why I think this is a lot more interesting.
Oh,
so my thought is that like I say in the video that there probably would have been native tribes here. Massachusetts was a hub of Native Americans, but I also think that it kind of stands in the way of Massachusetts. So if there were when the Pilgrims or whoever came over, they would have ran into this island before getting to Massachusetts. They would have had to sail either around it or through it, or they would have just found it and settled there instead of Massachusetts.
I think this would be I could definitely see this being like a landing ground. This would be like because I would imagine there's probably not a lot of natives that would live on this island. And I could see if the British did come and first try to colonize North America, they would probably try to take this island first, settle this island, and then use it almost like a staging ground to then go and supply other colonies across North America. It'd be interesting. It could either be a British colony right off the bat, or oddly enough, it could be a Spanish one, because Spain claimed all of North America and they had ships up until like the 17th century just patrolling the coast of the eastern seaboard. And even in fact, that's how situations like Roanoke happened. Is Roanoke was a secret colony at first because they didn't want the Spanish to find out that the English were on North America. So either the Spanish for some reason take this island, and then the British eventually just take it from them, New Holland style in that way. Or the English find it. There's probably not, I can't imagine there'd be Native Americans on it, and then they would just kind of make it their own little hub before spreading out into. And so instead of having the 13 colonies, you could have the 14 colonies at first. But I mean, that's kind of almost an interesting way to think of, would this even be a part of imagine there is like a United States, United States Revolution and stuff like that. This could probably be the one colony that would actually get away, and it wouldn't actually be a part of what we would think of as the United States, because it is a hub for, the British and fleets and stuff like that. This could be something that the British could easily take and, kind of quell any rebellion within the island, and then use it to try to, launch counter attacks against rebels during the whole revolution. I know that's kind of going on a little bit of a rant and stuff like that, but
No,
this is
that's
how
actually I had the same exact idea. I'm very impressed with you right now.
oh, we think alike. Hot damn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this would kind of be, if anything, it'd be like a loyalist center. If
Oh,
you think about it.
absolutely.
Yeah, and that would just be either by its choice or I think it would probably be through its choice, because its entire economy would probably rely on that trade between Britain and America, and being that, that center of,
Yeah, that middle
ships
ground.
coming through. Yeah, that
Well,
open ground.
even more than that, during the American Revolution, the British Navy was so much stronger than, any continental navy that there was. Like they would have easily been able to hold down this land. Like there would have been
it would have been
no
immediately they would have taken it.
Yeah, no chance of a strike or an invasion back on it. It would have been held, and it would have been held firmly by the British.
Nope. And then it just would have probably, I can't imagine it would ever be, if we're talking of another contentious nature to, I don't imagine this would ever be included as a part of Canada. It's too far from Canada, I think, for that to ever be. But I could see this being almost like, I'm trying to think of what was the because I don't really, okay, this is gonna sound embarrassing. Don't include this in the video of me trying to figure out which was it. It wasn't Newfoundland. Was it Newfoundland?
Oh, it was, are you thinking of like Labrador?
Was Labrador the one that stayed tied to Britain before? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like one of them wasn't part of Canada. It was on its own, and then decided later.
Yeah, so
I think that was Labrador and Newfoundland. I think they're like one. I don't.
It could be. It's both Labrador. So we might have a Labrador and Newfoundland situation where this area would be much more tied to Britain, ironically, than with the rest of Canada, and it could kind of culturally be even more of a blend between British and American than we would even imagine. If there's a place that the transatlantic accent would actually exist in, it would be here.
Transatlantica. There we go. We have our name now.
It's Transatlantica or Atlantica. That's yeah. But yeah, because there's always those stories of, even on the southern or the outer banks of like North Carolina and stuff like that, the weird accents that kind of exist. This would be a situation where it'd be like, yeah, this entire place just exists as a hub between America and Britain, and the people would reflect that in both their ideals, because it would be a loyalist colony that would never join America, but it'd be so close to the United States, it would still have to interact with Americans. So yeah, it'd be funny, because you could just imagine during the War of 1812, the United States would try to take it. You could just imagine that it'd be kind of an annoying thorn in the United States. I'm picturing
side. Like, the massacre of Atlantica,
Oh my God.
Like they just go, scorched earth on it. Like, we're tired of having you. We're tired of you being a thorn in our ass. Like, we're killing all of you.
You just know, I could imagine, because the United States and Canada get along today, but I could definitely see this. It wouldn't be still a heated rivalry or anything, because the UK and the United States are friends, but I could easily see in early American history, this would be like what this would be, the common nickname for this place. I can easily imagine being Judas. It would be the traitorous colony. They would unite in early American revolutionary propaganda. Yeah, we have Benedict Arnold and shit like that. That's still ingrained in American pop culture. This would be like the colony that's just like it got away, or it didn't fight hard enough or something like that. That would just be ingrained. And of course today people would laugh at it and whatever, but that'd still be like a little bit of a jab, I could imagine.
I bet that would come up at like all the sports games,
all the sports games and stuff like that. Yeah, it would be the same thing. And that's what it would translate to today. Obviously, it would have no actual real world political implications, but it'd be like how Canadians joke about burning down the White House today and stuff like that.
I'm pretty satisfied with that. That sounds exactly like what I thought.
I like that we're on the same thought process with this. That's nice.
Yeah. All right. So if we want to move over to the West Coast, now we're getting basically the same thing, but on the West Coast.
Yeah.
We can see this island of Santa Rosae. It formed out of these other 4 islands that still
No,
exist. It's like, it's, if you don't know, it's right off the coast of Los Angeles too.
yeah, I can. Yeah, San Miguel, Santa Rosa. Okay, so what I'm gonna call these is this is the okay, one sec. I need to look this up. I need to look this up. Oh, okay. These are so I could easily imagine this. This would be the Los Santos essentially of this whole, you know, world. This originally I could see this being settled by Spanish colonists. This would probably be the most populated area of like Mexico north of the Rio Grande. This would be the main populated area of what we would think of as California. You know, it wouldn't be Los Angeles, it wouldn't be anything like that. It would be these islands, and then they would kind of have forts docked around the entire thing. This is the Spanish Empire's dream, to be honest, if this stuff actually existed. Because one, I don't know, I could imagine there would be natives on these islands. Because natives, at least, they did have boats that could sail out.
Well, actually, you know, again, you continue to impress me, because this is actually, these islands now are where some of the very oldest like human fossils in the Americas have been found.
Oh, well, there we go. So they even liked it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, this would be a very distinct native, you know, group of culture within this within these islands that sadly would probably get wiped out by the Spanish. But then the Spanish would you know, turn these into their, you know, their West Indies in a way. Maybe not in term, I can't imagine they would be profitable, like that super profitable, but they would be definitely a good junction point to, they'd be safe from any native raids on the mainland, and it'd also be a way for them to project their influence across the, you know, all of New Spain, how, you know, on the western coast.
Yeah.
And I think that would be kind of their history for at least a while, up until you know, obviously the United States would come. And then I could imagine these would be islands that are I mean, that, okay, because now I'm thinking about it. If this actually had an actual Spanish population, actually no, I think these would eventually just be completely outpopulated by Americans eventually. Like I don't know who I'm lying. Like this is prime real estate. This is something,
especially if there's gold there, you know.
Yeah, especially if there's gold there, they would instantly be, it would be connected still to California and stuff like that. But I mean, it would depend on if there is a city, if there is some alternate city that is connected onto these islands. I mean, that could be something equivalent to maybe not Los Angeles, but it'd be certainly like a San Diego or, you know, a Santa Barbara. I can't imagine these would be incredibly influential areas. During colonization, they certainly would be, but I think the rest of California would eventually make them, you know, kind of obsolete. They would be very nice tourist areas, though. I would,
you know,
to the present day, or at least areas for, because wait, Santa Barbara. So this would be, because I'm looking, because yes, I'm using Google Maps to look at, to project my ideas on. Let's see. Okay, wait. So wait.
What's up?
Wait, did these islands actually exist?
Oh yeah, what we're looking at, the big island around them, like these were a connected island. They were like one huge island.
Oh my god,
maybe I should have made that more clear.
Are you kidding me? I didn't know these existed. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, they used to be like a way bigger island.
I feel that's what we're stupid as hell. Okay, all right. So let's act like I actually knew this whole time.
No,
okay.
I think all the audio will support the fact that you knew that they were islands.
So this island, this would be one big island, and I mean, this would be something, especially that Bay area, that would be immediately where I could see a city being put by the Spanish.
Yeah.
It's well protected, and then when the United States comes and, you know, pretty much, you know, buys and you know, not takes by force this area from, you know, Mexico, this would be a Los Angeles, San Diego type situation, where Los, or actually, you know what? If since it's called Santa Cruz and Santa Island, I mean, we have to have some alternate name for this.
Well, it's
This
already called
potential
Santa
city.
Rosae. If you can see, if you look at the map, it
Yeah.
points to the blue part.
So
but
would the city would just be called Santa Rosa, probably?
probably on, who are we kidding?
Yeah, it's a city of Santa Rosa. So you have Santa Barbara, yeah, you have Santa Barbara, you have Los Angeles, San Diego. You'd have, yeah, Santa Rosa. That would be the new, city. But yeah, I think especially in terms of the Santa Barbara Channel would be a lot closer and narrower. I mean, that'd be fascinating in terms of like a natural choke point, just for like in terms of naval. I could imagine this being a very US Navy centered area.
Well,
But
actually,
other,
it's again, man, like these islands today are basically uninhabited, except for a bunch of them have Navy bases on
well, there you go.
them. That's all they're used for now.
I mean they're yeah, I mean they're pretty much just I mean they're kind of uninhabited. I would imagine that in this alternate timeline they would be more inhabited because especially if they're flatter plain, the islands themselves would be the hilly mountainous areas, and then the flatlands would be where everybody goes. But yeah, I could see in between Santa Rosa and Santa Cruz, I could imagine smacking a small city in, and you just put it right there.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, it's eventually going to get taken over by the Americans, and it's going to be absorbed into California. I think if you would have anything, you could maybe have a quirky little independence movement of we want Santa Rosa to be its own island.
Well, you know what I was
something,
thinking
or
is,
its own
when
state.
Mexico sold California or whatever to America, they might not have sold them that island. They might have just, they might not have even, the US might not have even known about it. So they might have just kept it and then gave it this, weird history of who owns it, who doesn't,
Well, that's the main, it really depends on on how well populated this area would be, because even the most populated, the main problem is just how difficult it is to patrol and keep control of this area from the Mexican perspective, because the current goes south. It was very hard for them to ever sail north and actually project influence into California. So that affects how well populated these islands would be even by the time that the Americans would come, because you're talking an island chain or at least an island that is super far away from Mexico's actual influence, which is Mexico City. Historically, Mexico has had trouble even controlling northern Mexico.
Yeah.
So how well would they actually, they could probably try to negotiate and be like, yeah, we want to keep these islands. But I think the Americans are going to tap on a map and be like, you see this border? And they're going to point to the border between San Diego and Tijuana and be like, no, that everything north of that's ours now. So it would be funny if Mexico would at least we really like this island, and I know it's right off California.
Well, you want to know why I say that? I told you there was a unique animal to this island, and this island only is where a species of pygmy mammoths existed.
No.
Yeah, tiny mammoths. I swear to God.
You know what? I want that that would be so funny if somehow they just didn't go extinct, and it's just the Spanish or the Americans come across and it's just tiny mammoths. It's little elephant island. Would they even know what mammoths are?
No, that'd probably be their first ever encounter with them.
They would just think because these would be actually furry mammoths, right? They would actually have hair.
They'd have little hair. The Colombian mammoth is weird because I looked at pictures of it. Most of the drawings don't have it having much hair. So
they wouldn't even think these are mammoths. They would just think these are different. Well, actually, we'd probably just classify them as elephants.
Yeah,
that's just what our understanding
of them would be called elephantinos.
It'd be the American elephant or the California elephant or something. It'd be some boring name for the most interesting, fascinating pygmy mammoths in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one big island, I mean, it'd be controlled by the Spanish, and it'd have a sizable community on it until it's eventually taken over by the Americans and becomes a part of California.
Yeah. I didn't really expect you to have much to say about these, to be honest. It
Oh, I'm
was
sorry.
more of a, no, I mean, like, the more the merrier. It's just, I felt bad almost giving you this to talk about because it
No,
felt like
it's
so.
I love it. Honestly, that's the thing. If I could do these type of videos so much for my channel, I would. I just don't want to overload my audience with like Doggerland or this. What you could take a pencil and just draw in in the middle of an ocean some alternate landmass, and I'd be like, okay, this is how we're going to imagine it.
Yeah.
So this is the funnest stuff in my mind. So no, thank you for this. I love this. I think we can, yeah, we can move on to the.
Yeah, between in the video between this one and the next one, I talk about all these Pacific islands because, obviously with lower sea levels, there would be thousands, probably millions more islands in the Pacific too. But it's like individually, they're all too small to really have influence. And like,
Yeah.
there's just, there's a lot more, but it's the story would be that, more Polynesians were there and then they weren't.
Yeah, more Polynesians would be happier.
Yeah.
That'd be the lesson.
So yeah, let's move on to these. These are, if you can tell, that's Madagascar off the coast of Africa, and these are pretty sizable.
These are pretty sizable. I think. I mean, what I see here is I see like a circle. I see this very interesting region that could be its own like cultural sphere, its own trade network, because we know I can tell you're probably going to talk about how Madagascar is settled by not Africans but by Southeast Asians.
Oh, absolutely.
And, yeah, absolutely. So these Southeast Asians would already have settled, what's it called?
Seychelles. There's like
sorry. So these Southeast Asians would have already settled Seychelles and Cargados and Rodriguez and stuff like that. And obviously they have different names. But I mean, this would be a place where it'd be a seafaring people that would mostly trade with each other. But then Madagascar would kind of be the outer regions of this cultural area. And honestly, I don't think the people would ever give up their seafaring nature. I mean, because if they crossed all the way from the Indian Ocean into Madagascar, it would be almost like an Indian Ocean version of Polynesians.
Yeah.
Kinda, a smaller version of that. But I mean, we're talking that'd be a very fascinating alternate culture to kind of imagine.
Yeah, what I say in the video is because, today Seychelles is like the smallest island, and the only other part of this that's still around is Mauritius, all the way down here. And it was on Mauritius that dodos were found. That was the only island where dodos were found. And all the nearby islands also had giant birds, like Réunion had one, Rodriguez had one, and Madagascar had something called an elephant bird. And so, what I say is that there would have been, an equally giant bird on all of these islands too,
Man. Yeah, it would be a whole, I mean, that would, hopefully the birds themselves wouldn't be hunted to extinction.
Oh, no, they would be, trust me.
Yeah. I mean, they would be, but God, that's what always sucks about whenever imagining these type of animals, and it's like, oh yeah, humans arrive, and then these birds wouldn't exist anymore. But
yeah, they would have existed, and then they would not have existed again.
We would be talking about them just like the elephant bird. Oh boy, it's fun. They would all have just the most fascinating wildlife, as any island nation would, and then each. I mean, these islands are big enough. I could imagine that each one would be its own. It would definitely see itself as its own nation, and they would just be kind of ethnically connected. They'd be ethnically similar, or at least culturally similar. So Seychelles wouldn't really, because we're talking spans of the scale of Africa really does not give it justice of how big of how long this island chain truly would be from Seychelles to Mauritius. That, I mean, just by looking at, let me look, because I'm gonna go to I'm gonna use my handy dandy true size of which never fails. So okay, so basically that difference from Mauritius to Seychelles would be from would be from Maine to southern Georgia.
Damn.
Yeah, this is so this would be, even if they are culturally similar and they would trade, which I could imagine, Polynesian style, that would be probably the same thing would happen. But each island would be its own unique culture of viewing itself as its own nation. It'd be fascinating. It'd almost be like I could imagine if Europeans came across it, they could view it as almost a smaller Indonesia on the other side of the Indian Ocean, because Europeans love their equivalents. So you have your East Indies and your West Indies, but if you had your own West Indies like on the other side of the Indian Ocean,
The Indies.
The East Indies. Yeah, it's weird. I think this would be definitely. Oh shit, the Europeans.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't think. I was so fascinated on the people themselves. I didn't think about colonialism. Yeah, no,
No, neither did most people.
Yeah, no, it was very unexpected. Who could have saw it come? But yeah, I think once the Europeans would come, this would be probably immediately settled by at least the Dutch. Another similarity to the East Indies. But this would be the stopping ground for any Europeans pre, the Nile Canal, going under the Cape of Good Hope and stopping off in these islands.
Yeah, probably the Portuguese too, right? Like
probably the Portuguese. Honestly, these would probably be some wild islands. These would be. I could imagine poor Amirante. That could be like the freaking Vegas of the Indian Ocean. You'd have traders. You could even have like a mix of the even pirate. You have Somalia like only a little bit further north. This would be the Caribbean of East Africa, and it would be crazy. You'd have pirates, you'd have traders, you'd have Portuguese and Dutch ships with the biggest targets on them back, but it would also be a rest area where they could trade and socialize and stuff like that. It kind of just be this crazy time during the colonialism. I would tell you that. Yeah, I could imagine this being similar to I'm losing my voice a little bit. This could be very similar to the Caribbean in the Americas.
The Pirates of, oh man, what would it be called? That's the thing. The Pirates of what? What's the Disney spinoff?
The funniest thing is that this is a region that there's no name for this area.
Right?
This would be an island chain that what I could imagine is, God, it's just called British Indian Ocean Territory. That sucks. Because
one of them is called like Diego, like one of the real islands, and it's like, well, that's not a name that's from there,
Well, I would imagine, especially because you have stuff like the name like Cape Town. I could see this would be like the rest area, like a stopping. I don't know. I honestly don't know what you would call it. It would depend on what the Portuguese would call it, to be honest.
Probably be like spice port or something, whatever that is in Portuguese. If they're trading spices, if that's like the main, throughway or point of being.
Yeah, well, because it'd be like this would already be an area that I could imagine having its own, 1,000 years of civilization in a way.
Yeah.
This would be something that they would have not only trading amongst each other, but they would be trading with East Africa. This transformed.
Oh, there'd be Arab traders. Arabs
there'd be Arab traders. This would be this place would be bopping. That's what. But yeah, they'd be trading with Great Zimbabwe. This would be just the strangest blend of. It would most likely already be it'd be Muslim already, but God, I could imagine it would definitely be a strange area once the Europeans came and colonized it.
I'm trying to think of who colonized Madagascar.
The French. But the French wouldn't. I don't imagine the French would not have. This would be either Portuguese or Dutch, because that would be the main people coming under and trading with the Indies. In fact, this would probably be the most lucrative. This would be the golden gem of the Portuguese Empire. This would be the absolute thing that they would want to protect more than anything. Because they would just trade through, they would already have control of a lot of West Africa, or at least have bases on West Africa. And then they would trade under South Africa. And then this would be the most important place to protect, because then they could project power into India and trade with India. So whoever, I mean, this would be the center of so many alternate like 16th and 18th century wars. It'd be insane. This would be, I mean, this would be something that would make the Caribbean look like nothing. All the wars, all the piracy of the Caribbeans, it would look like nothing compared to this.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of, all the slaves that would have been brought here from Africa too. Like it wouldn't even have its native population probably by the end.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, you could, well, it'd be, I don't know. Because would they enslave the people, or would they use the people as almost like an agreement, like with India? Would it be like, because I'm thinking that these islands could be more influential enough, it would be an alternate civilization like we would see with Malaysia, where these could be people that would already have their own writing system and cities, alternate like glorious cities almost, especially with their trade with Africa and stuff like that. That would they even be able to, would Europe come in and just wipe them out? I don't think they would. I think Europe would come in and make deals with local rulers, and then that would be the way that colonization would happen, not necessarily, just wipe them out and take the land.
Yeah.
So this would just be a weird strange of cultures. You'd have the native Seychelles people. You'd have Arab traders, Somali pirates, Great Zimbabwe, in the East African cities that would frequently communicate. And honestly, the most boring place in this whole world would be Madagascar. Madagascar would still be like kind of ignored relatively, because it's just too big. So yeah, I think that's
that's pretty good. That's that's more than I was expecting, to be honest. And they'd all have their own big birds too. It'd be
and they'd all have their own they have some really nice fossils, I'll tell you that. But in terms of, I guess we could say once the 19th century, I know this is going too long, but once we get to like the 19th century, 20th century, it's either probably it would be the Dutch or Portuguese that would still have these in their outer colonial empires. And then I could imagine that each island would kind of just split off, and they could maybe eventually view themselves as a confederation, but I kind of feel like they would all view themselves as separate nations. So, yep. That's the best. God, got me on a rant on that one.
That was, that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah.
All right. I'm gonna stop recording then.
Oh wait. Okay. Wait. Am I gonna say like bye or whatever? Or
what's that's true.
Oh yeah.
I would like to, thank you for, coming here. That it really does help. It really does flesh it out. I have a line in my video where I say, it's literally half the fun of like learning about all these places is thinking about, what they would have been like. So, thanks for joining me. Thanks for guiding me through it and giving me all these cool ideas that I'll put in my video and not yours. And mine will be so cool.
Oh yeah, yours is gonna be so much better than mine. Boring as hell. Yeah, but thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's great. This was just it was funner than playing video games, honestly. Just looking and brainstorming. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah.